A good casserole is about great ingredients that are better together than they are apart. What I loved about casseroles growing up was that they're usually a mix of all of my favorite things. Potatoes, meat, cheese, some sort of sauce, you get the picture. And what brings it all home is obviously baking it and getting a nice crispy top. Today I have 3 Indian-style casserole dishes that I think you're gonna love. Fish biryani is India's answer to the casserole. With flaky white fish on perfectly cooked rice, it gets pretty special. A casserole of beef, cauliflower, and pea with spiced tomato sauce is a fresh update to your basic one-dish meal. Bread pudding is the best dessert casserole, and my version with chocolate and pistachio is a real winner. Creamy and soft bready bites with melty chocolate, oh man. Why have tons of pots and pans on the go when you can make a warm and comforting meal all in one dish? I'll show you how, and you'll be whipping up new casseroles in no time. Biryani is India's version of a casserole, and my fish biryani requires a little bit of time, but the end result is elegant and so worth the effort. This is how you do it. I have a large skillet set over medium heat. To that, let's add a few tablespoons of canola oil. Once your oil is nice and hot, let's add in some curry leaves. I have a small handful here. We're going to allow them to pop. Our curry leaves have popped. Now let's add in 1 thinly sliced red onion. Two inches of minced up ginger. A full head of thinly sliced garlic. And 4 fresh green chilies that I've also thinly sliced. If you don't like it super spicy, feel free to remove the seeds or cut down on the amount of chilies that you're actually using. To help all of this sweat down, let's add a pinch of salt. Our onion mixture is softened up really nicely. Now let's add in some spices. I have 1 tablespoon of ground coriander seeds, half a teaspoon of turmeric, and a 1/4 teaspoon of red chili, and this will add the heat at the back of your throat. Let's give this a stir. Now for some sourness that goes really well with fish, tamarind. I have 2 tablespoons. And 1 cup of crushed tomatoes. Now let's cook this mixture over low heat until it's nice and thick and rich. Our tomato and tamarind sauce is thickened up really nicely. Now let's add in half a cup of coconut milk. Give it a good mix. Our coconut milk is nicely incorporated, so let's turn the heat off. Now let's add in our fish. Here I have 6 fillets of tilapia, a nice firm white fish that I've cut into 2 to 3 inch pieces, and I've turned the heat off of this. And now let's nestle our fish right inside the sauce. All of our fish is covered on the bottom side in that delicious sauce. Let's season the top with some salt and pepper. Now let's let the fish hang out and let's move over to the rice. Here I have my casserole dish. Here I have 2 cups of rice that I've allowed to cool on a baking sheet, and that ensures that it doesn't get gummy. You want to make sure you have rice that's nice and loose and fluffy. So let's take 2/3 of this rice, lay it into our casserole pan. So now let's grab our fish. And let's pick up all this fish and put it right on the inside. You don't want to get too much gravy, just a little bit that's underneath the fish. The reason why you don't want too much of the sauce is that it'll make it really soggy. All this leftover sauce, we're gonna reheat it up, and I'm gonna serve it as a gravy right on the side. Spoon a tiny bit of the sauce right over top of the fish. Now let's top this entire thing with the remainder of the rice. So now let's bake this at a 400-degree oven for about 40 to 45 minutes until the rice is nice and crispy and golden brown. And in the meantime, let me show you how to make an incredible churi sauce, which goes perfectly with my fish biryani. In a bowl, add 1 cup each of roughly chopped mint leaves and coriander leaves, 2 teaspoons of grated ginger, a half cup of plain Greek yogurt, make sure it's the full fat kind, and a half a cup of buttermilk. Add 2 green onions that have been thinly sliced and give it a really good mix up. Whether it's fish, chicken, or beef, you'll want to slather this churi sauce on everything. Our fish biryani's been in the oven for about 45 minutes. Look at this. It needs one final flourish, some garnish. I have some toasted whole cashews. Some cilantro leaves. You have the really crispy rice on the top, around the sides and on the bottom, and in the middle you have that perfectly cooked fish with just the right amount of sauce. Of course, we've reserved some of that gravy, that incredible churi sauce. The entire eating experience of my fish biryani is truly magical. Casseroles are an excellent opportunity to introduce new flavors and textures into your dinner time routine, and my bow tie pasta bake has it in spades, and it is so simple to do. I've already preheated my oven to 400 degrees Fahrenheit. Now over medium heat, I have a large skillet. To that, let's add 2 tablespoons of olive oil. Now let's add in 2 shallots that have been minced. 4 cloves of garlic that's also been minced up. And an inch of grated ginger. Let's sweat this down until it's nice and soft. It should take about a couple of minutes. Our shallots, ginger, and garlic are nice and soft. Now let's add in 1 pound of ground beef. Let's season this with a bit of salt. The beef has browned up nicely. Now let's add in some cauliflower. I have 1 head of cauliflower that I've cut into florets. Let's season up the cauliflower with a bit of salt. Let's let this cauliflower cook for a few minutes until it's nice and soft but still retains its texture. And in the meantime, let me chop up some rosemary. So I got 1 sprig of rosemary here. Pick all the leaves off. I'm going to chop this up nice and fine, and we'll probably end up with about 2 teaspoons of rosemary. Our cauliflower is cooked down nicely. Now let's add in some super delicious Indian flavor. I have a tablespoon of garam masala, and a teaspoon of chaat masala. Now let's add our 2 teaspoons of chopped up rosemary. Give it a good mix. Release all those delicious flavors. Now let's add in 1 cup of peas. This will add some really delicious sweetness. 1 large tin of crushed tomatoes. Now, if this wasn't already delicious enough, let's add in 1 cup of heavy cream. Let's adjust the seasoning with a little bit more salt. Now, of course, you cannot have a pasta bake without some pasta. So I've pre-cooked half a pound of bow tie pasta, half the box. Let's stir this in. Everything is mixed really well, so let's grab a casserole pan. Put our pasta in. Now, my favorite part about a pasta bake is the ooey gooey bubbly cheese that gets nice and browned on top inside the oven. It's my absolute favorite bit. So to accomplish that, we need 1 1/4 cups of mozzarella cheese. And for that salty kick, half a cup of Parmesan cheese. So let's put this into our 400-degree oven for about 20 minutes, and then at the very end, pop it under the high broiler until the cheese gets bubbly and browned and super delicious. How amazing does this look? You have that beautiful tender pasta, that rich sauce with that heavy cream, the garam masala and the chaat masala, the brightness and sweetness of those peas, and the beautiful tender cauliflower, and of course the meatiness from the ground beef. All you need now is a fork for my bow tie pasta bake. What do you do with leftover stale bread? You definitely don't feed it to the birds. You make an incredible chocolate and pistachio bread pudding that's creamy, crispy, super delicious, and incredibly sinful. And it is so easy to do. I have a large bowl, and into that, let's crack 6 eggs. To the eggs, let's add 3 cups of whole milk. And 3/4 of a cup of heavy cream. Now let's add in some of our flavorings. I have 1½ teaspoons of ground cinnamon, 1 teaspoon of ground allspice. We'll add in 2 teaspoons of grated ginger. This adds a really nice spicy undertone to the entire dish, and chocolate and ginger are best friends. And 1 tablespoon of vanilla. Let's give this a really good whisk. That's fully mixed up. I have another bowl here. To this bowl, let's add in 1/4 cup of cocoa. One cup of brown sugar. And 1 cup of white sugar. Mix this up. Let's take our sugar mixture, incorporate it into the egg and milk mixture. Everything should be fully dissolved. To this mixture, let's boost that chocolate flavor. I have 4 ounces of chopped dark chocolate, and 1/2 cup of whole pistachios. Here's 1 loaf of stale French bread that I've cut into 1-inch cubes. Let's put inside our milk mixture. Give it a good stir. Now let's let our bread pudding mixture stand for about 20 minutes. You want to ensure that the bread has an opportunity to soak up as much of that really delicious chocolate custard as possible. Our bread pudding's been soaking for about 20 minutes. You can see that the majority of the liquid has been absorbed. There's a little bit left around the edges, but the bread has soaked up everything that it could. Let's set this aside for a second. Here I have a greased baking dish. And this is when it gets fun. I'm gonna use my hands, lift up all the bread, all those pistachios and the chocolate pieces, and put them inside our casserole pan. Don't squeeze the bread. You want to keep it as moist as possible. We're gonna bake this at a relatively low temperature, 325 degrees, for about an hour, or until a toothpick comes out nice and clean. And you're gonna get this super custardy bread pudding that's gonna be the talk of your neighborhood. Our bread pudding baked in the oven for about an hour, and I've allowed it to cool on the counter for a few minutes. The outside is super crispy, which is really important for bread pudding, and the inside is luscious, creamy, and really custardy. You have these super delicious flavors on the inside going on too, like ginger, allspice, and cinnamon, kind of brought together with the chocolate and that nutty creaminess of the pistachios. To make a perfect night, all you need is a spoon and my chocolate and pistachio bread pudding. I love making one-pot dishes like casseroles because they go into the oven to bake, into the fridge to store, then reheat them back in the oven in the same dish or in the microwave if you're in a hurry. They're awesome. I make them all the time. I love fish biryani, and it's like India's version of a casserole because you have the rice and the fish cooking together and exchanging all their flavors. And really delicious biryanis have a beautiful crust on the bottom of the rice, and that kind of acts as the crispy topping but upside down. The beef, cauliflower, and pea and the spiced tomato sauce is really delicious. What we've done is we've taken the classic pasta bake and incorporated some Indian spices into it. So you got garam masala, chaat masala, some cheese on the top that gets nice and brown and crispy. How can you go wrong? When you think about casserole, you mostly think about the pan. So the pan it's cooked in is usually these rectangular or circular pans that go from oven straight to table into the fridge. And bread pudding is perfect for cooking in that vessel. You soak all those really delicious bread pieces inside the egg batter, and then it goes straight from there into the oven to get crispy and bubbly, and then we top it with melted chocolate. How can you go wrong? If you're looking for a hearty meal to feed your family or friends, what better way to go than with a casserole?